I need to play you a video. My buddy Steve Guest rather, put this up. Works for my buddy Greg. And this is a great juxtaposition. You would find this if you were a subscriber to the show notes. You'd find this link in there. You need to see this juxtaposition of Joe Biden's positions.
News this week, to the extent that some of the Democrats are saying that if, because of Israel's settlements policy, that they would look at cutting off military aid to Israel as a result of that.
That'd be a tragic mistake. I strongly oppose Israel's settlement policy on the West Bank. I've made that clear to Bibi when I was vice president. I made it crystal clear to the Israelis. But the idea that we would cut off military aid to an ally, our only true ally in the entire region, is absolutely preposterous. It's just beyond my comprehension anyone would do that. I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities, to deal with that problem. We're going to continue to make sure Israel is secure in terms of Iron Dome and their ability to respond to attacks like came out of the Middle East recently. But it's just wrong. We're not going to supply the weapons and the artillery shells used that have been used.
Artillery shells as well.
Yeah, artillery shells.
That's Joe Biden talking to Judy Woodruff in 2019 on PBS, and then just the other day with Aaron Burnett. He was opposed to stopping military aid for Israel then, and now he's happy to. The only thing that's changed is his election prospects with anti-Semites. He needs the anti-Semites to vote for him. But there is something else happening here as well, and it's something you've got to digest. The Democrats hate Benjamin Netanyahu. You know, it's notable. I saw Bill Kristol tweeted yesterday. I hadn't really paid attention to Bill, but Bill's always been pro-Israel and supporter of Bibi. But as he's turned to the left, he's turned against Bibi as well, and thinks that Benjamin Netanyahu is the problem. Now, in Israel, the public is very divided on their prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. There's not a lot of love for him right now, and in fact, he risks ouster, and there's just not a lot of support. However, because of what Hamas did, all of the parties in Israel, left, right, and center, have come together in a coalition, and they've agreed that while we agree on nothing, we agree Hamas must be eliminated. And because Benjamin Netanyahu is the prime minister, we don't need to have an election right now. Let's just agree to disagree on everything except this and go destroy Hamas. But in this country, the left's willingness to help or not help Israel is based on Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump broke a lot of brains, and many of the brains on the left have taken the brokenness, hatred of Trump, and they've applied it to Benjamin Netanyahu. He's under investigation in Israel for corruption. He's been there for a long time. Despite all of the excuses, though, their real hatred of Benjamin Netanyahu comes from one thing. He's kept beating them and defying them. The American left likes it when leaders supplicate themselves to them and grovel to them and embrace their ideas. One of the American left's long-held ideas has been a two-state solution for Israel and the Palestinians. They want a nation of Palestine. Israel was willing to give the Palestinians a Palestinian nation, and they rejected it. Not Israel. The Palestinians rejected a two-state solution. What do the Palestinians want? Palestine from river to sea, the elimination of the Jewish nation. And Benjamin Netanyahu, after seeing the Palestinians reject the two-state solution, said, screw this. We're going to have a strong Israel, and the Palestinians, they're not going to come in. He supported building a big wall around Palestinian territories, regulating who could come in. That has infuriated the American left. The American left has vehemently opposed Netanyahu, and because the American left is so identity politics based and personality driven, because he's in charge, they don't want to help Israel. Forget the Israeli nation. They're actually kind of angry with Israelis for returning Benjamin Netanyahu to power. Remember that the Israelis have had just a series of elections, like 5 elections in a row. They've all been very close. They've resulted almost in hung parliaments. And finally, Benjamin Netanyahu, he was able to get ahead. He's got a slim majority. They've all come together to fight Hamas, and that's not good enough for the United States. And because the left, and in particular Joe Biden, hates Benjamin Netanyahu, their hatred of one man has shaped their policies for an entire nation. It is a level of bigotry. But I need you to look at this a little differently, because it's very important for you to understand where this heads. The hatred that the Democrats have for Benjamin Netanyahu is the hatred they have for you. Don't look now, but the polling that all of you hate has Donald Trump winning. If it comes to fruition that Donald Trump wins the election in November, the Democrats are going to unleash jihad on you because they hate you. They're willing to hijack an entire nation and put it at threat in the hands of terrorists because of one man. Think about their hatred of all of you. If you vote for Donald Trump, it's going to be your fault. And to an extent right now, the Democrats believe that the Israeli situation is the fault of the Israelis because too many of them voted for Benjamin Netanyahu. And because they supported Benjamin Netanyahu, they themselves are bad people. So they get what they deserve. That's what's at stake here. You do need to understand that. Now, they don't talk about that publicly, of course. They don't want to put it as bluntly as I put it, but that's it. They hate Netanyahu. They hate that so many Israelis voted for Netanyahu. Therefore, screw the Israelis. You get what you deserve because you didn't do what we, the American Democratic Party, wanted you to do. In the same way, it's going to happen here. If Donald Trump wins in November, there's going to be riots. There's going to be violence. There's going to be fire bombings of small businesses around America if Donald Trump gets elected because the Democrats will have lost their faith in you. They put their faith in the elite technocrats, not in the American people. The Democrats abhor the idea of a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. The Democrats want a government of the Democrats, for the Democrats, and by the Democrats. It's why when Democrats are in charge of the United States Senate, you don't hear them questioning the legitimacy of the institution. The moment they lose control, you'll hear all about how it's anti-democratic and the people of North Dakota have the same number of people in the Senate as California, and therefore it's an illegitimate organization. What you see playing out in domestic politics is what's playing out with their support or lack thereof in Israel. It's all transactional for them. They don't want Bibi Netanyahu in charge. As long as he's in charge, Israel is the bad guy because the Israelis voted poorly and they must be punished for their bad vote. In fact, you hear this in the conversations on news networks in this country that October 7th wouldn't have happened but for Benjamin Netanyahu being in charge. He caused them to get distracted because he's an arrogant SOB, and they're getting what they deserve because they put Benjamin Netanyahu in charge. You hear this play out. The punditry in this country about Israel from the left, from the TV pundits, from the politicians is all premised on the left's hatred of Benjamin Netanyahu. They despise that man because he has refused to submit to them. He has refused to be humble to them. He has refused to acknowledge their superiority, and the Democrats hate it when anybody refuses to acknowledge their inherent superiority. Netanyahu has aligned himself with the Republicans of this country for a very long time because the GOP has been more pro-Israel than the Democrats, and he knew it. And the Republicans have largely won the White House more often than the Democrats in the last 30, 40 years. So the Democrats hate him. They hate that he's not a liberal. They hate that he's not a progressive. They hate that he's not an anti-Semite. Their entire policy on Israel is premised on that, and it's going to be the same thing here. Look at what they're doing to Israel. They're withholding funds from Israel because Israel has Netanyahu in charge. They're blaming Netanyahu for all the policies. They're claiming that there would be a two-state, but for Netanyahu, never mind that Israel offered the Palestinians a two-state solution and they turned it down. Never mind the history. Never mind the facts. The facts be damned. It's all about Netanyahu and their hatred of one man. And they will punish an entire nation for voting for that man. And if they will do it to Israel, they will do it to you too. They'll do it here. You already know they will. You saw their utter contempt for Trump voters for the last 4 years. They're utter contempt. The nastiness, and they think you deserve it. You deserve to be treated nasty, not civilly, because you voted for Trump. Progressives are pretty open about their hostility for you. We're seeing play out in Israel what's going to happen here if Donald Trump wins again. If Donald Trump wins again, there probably will be a terror attack, frankly, because Biden has so opened the borders to terrorists being able to come across. They'll blame Trump immediately. If it happens like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the day of Trump's inauguration, they'll say it was Donald Trump's fault. He was asleep at the switch. Never mind that the terrorists crossed the border when Biden was president. It'll all be Trump's fault, and the media will do the same thing. They'll make it all about Donald Trump, asleep at the switch. The media and the Democrats together as one party in Washington, D.C., a hive mind wants to blame Benjamin Netanyahu for the attacks on Israel. They'll blame Donald Trump if it happens here. They'll blame you if Donald Trump gets elected because they hate not being in charge. They hate losing power. To the Democrats, it's all a power structure. It's all about power. It's not about the people. It's not about anything else. It's about power, and they want the power. And if you deny them the power, they will punish you. Benjamin Netanyahu has denied them the power. They will punish him, and they'll punish Israel for elevating him. That's what's happening in this dynamic. Everything you see the Democrats doing with Israel right now, holding them hostage to the whims of the Democratic Party, they'll do here if Trump gets in power. Because at the end of the day, for them, it's not about right or wrong. For the Democrats, it's about power. And with Netanyahu, they don't have the power they want. And with Trump, they don't have the power they want. And so they will punish those who gave those men power. And right now, sadly for Israel, they're going to be denied arms by Democrats in Washington because the Democrats are upset the Israelis themselves don't hate themselves.